often referred to as sweet poison. You're watching How to Improve Your Health Using Biblical Principles. I am Arlene Robinson with Dr. Robinson as we continue with this series. Last week we looked at portioning of food, and we saw that there were a number of food pyramids that were designed to deal with different medical problems. And in 2005, a pyramid called the Revised Food Pyramid was designed to deal with the obesity crisis. However, the sabbatical pyramid is the only pyramid that is based on biblical principles that we know of. The insight for this pyramid was found in Ezekiel 4:9, where God gave Ezekiel the recipe to make a bread that will keep him healthy for a long period of time. So today now we're going to look at one particular food ingredient called high fructose corn syrup, which is a very controversial food ingredient these days, and we're going to consider whether it is safe. Before we get into it, we need to look at a couple of video clips for the use of high fructose corn syrup and against the use of high fructose corn syrup. The first two clips are from the U.S. Corn Refiners Association. They make the corn syrup, so I guess they will be for the use of it. And the third clip is from a lady called Connie Bennett, who co-authored Sugar Shocks. So let's just view these video clips and we'll be right back.
Hey! Wow. You don't care what the kids eat, huh?
Excuse me?
That has high fructose corn syrup in it.
And?
Yeah, you know what they say about it?
Like what?
Honey.
It's that it's made from corn, doesn't have artificial ingredients, and like sugar, it's fine in moderation.
Love that top. Oh, well, thank you.
Get the facts. You're in for a sweet surprise.
You want a bite?
I thought you loved me.
I do. Take 2 bites.
It's got high fructose corn syrup in it.
So?
Well, you know what they say about it.
What?
That
That it's made from corn, has the same calories as sugar or honey, and it's fine in moderation.
you only wrote one.
Get the facts. You're in for a sweet surprise.
Hello, I'm Antonio Neves, and this is 3-Minute Ad Age, your daily video news show. Is it really dumb to be concerned about high fructose corn syrup as a sweetener in food products? That's the impression you get from the Corn Refiners Association's new TV commercials.
That has high fructose corn syrup in it.
And?
Yeah, you know what they say about it?
Like what?
Honey.
The trade group is spending an estimated $30 million to run these spots for the next 18 months. They stress that in moderation, high fructose corn syrup poses no risk. But rebutting the idea that moderation is possible in today's marketplace is Connie Bennett, co-author of the Penguin Group book, Sugar Shock.
Those ads are really, really frightening, and they are pulling the wool over the eyes of the American public. One of the ads, as I recall, is called 2 Bites. And the young woman says to her husband or significant other, you know, she offers him a popsicle. And he says, well, don't you love me? And she says, yes, of course, would you like to have 2 bites instead? And so he's then portrayed as saying, well, high fructose corn syrup isn't good for you. And she's asked him why, and he stumbles all over the place. He can't figure out what the answer is. And all 3 of the TV ads do the exact same thing. They portray the person turning down high fructose corn syrup as somebody who is inept, inarticulate, doesn't know what the heck he or she is talking about. So then the wife or the lover, whatever, she says, oh, go ahead, have 2 bites. And the point is, if you are consuming processed foods that you find in the supermarket, you are not consuming only 2 bites. Nobody consumes high fructose corn syrup in moderation. Anytime you buy anything that's in a can, a jar, or a package, there's a really good chance it's going to have high fructose corn syrup in it. There are roughly 52,000 items with high fructose corn syrup in it. We are talking about ketchup, breads, crackers, cookies, cereals, even pasta sauce, yogurt, even foods you wouldn't think that would contain high fructose corn syrup, like pickles. Basically, you can find high fructose corn syrup in 2/3 of the ingredients that you find in a grocery store, which is why people like me will tell you, please shop in the parameters of the store, shop around all the areas where you find all the junk food.
And that's it for this 3-minute ad age. Thanks for being with us. I'm Antonio Neves at Advertising Age of New York.
Welcome back. Those were some very interesting video clips that we saw. And the 2 ads that we looked at, they were produced by Corn Refiners Association. So obviously they have a business interest in there to get us to use the high fructose corn syrup. And their pitch is that it is safe with moderate consumption. The other lady now, she's co-author of the book called The Sugar Shots. She says it is impossible to take high fructose corn syrup in moderation because it's in almost everything.
Right.
So we need to find out, since we can't really avoid the high fructose corn syrup, is this something safe?
Okay.
What should we go shopping on the periphery and major on the vegetables or just stay with the high fructose corn syrup? So we need to find out exactly what this high fructose corn syrup is.
Okay, high fructose corn syrup, as the term says, is a syrup that is made from corn that has a high level of fructose in it. Now what they do, they take the starch from the corn and they use some enzymes to break down the starch to produce this type of syrup, and they can make different levels of fructose depending on how long you allow the enzymes to react with, and the condition you allow the enzymes to react with the starch from the corn. So you have 42% high fructose corn syrup, 55% high fructose corn syrup, and 90% high fructose corn syrup. Now the use of high fructose corn syrup goes back to about 1960, 1965, when US started to use it in their as a sweetener and so on, and the use has continued to increase steadily since that time and now, and currently about half of the sweetener used in the US is made from high fructose corn syrup, and we see it a lot in things like soft drinks and so on, because the fructose increases sweetness of the sweetener and so on. So the higher the fructose level it would be sweeter that syrup would be, and so on. Now, where the association with high fructose corn syrup and medical condition, and in particular obesity and hypertension, came in, is that what they noticed is that as the use of high fructose corn syrup increased in the US, there was an increase in the prevalence and incidence of obesity and hypertension. So some people now draw a conclusion and say, oh, the reason why we're seeing more obese people, the reason why we're seeing more people with hypertension is because we are using more and more high fructose corn syrup in the food that is consumed by the Americans. Now, because there's a correlation between the increased use of high fructose corn syrup and increase in obesity and hypertension, does not mean that high fructose corn syrup is what causes obesity and hypertension. Because I'm certain there are many other things that have increased in the US since 1965 and correlates very well with these diseases. For instance, the amount of dirty dishes it has increased significantly since 1965. And no, you wouldn't say the amount of dirty dishes is related to obesity or hypertension.
It might be related to obesity because people eating more food. I don't know. But it really doesn't follow that the two are related. What we have here is a graph which bears out some of what you were just saying about the use of sweeteners and in particular high fructose corn syrup. This shows the use of sweeteners in the US, which is the information we could find, between 1965 and 2010. The black line represents total sweeteners used, the blue line represents the refined sugars, and the red line shows the use of high fructose corn syrup. We observed that the total use of sweeteners during this period increased minimally during this time.
That's right.
But it's interesting to see that as the use of refined sugars came down, the use of high fructose corn syrup increased. Probably the high fructose coming on the scene.
Right.
It's probably cheaper too.
Yes, it is cheaper than the refined sugar.
Right.
That's right.
So you had less use of the refined sugars.
Right.
And today it's about 50-50 in
that's
the
correct.
sweeteners used. Now, since high fructose corn syrup makes up almost 50% of the sweeteners used, and it's getting a bad name out there, it might suit us to compare high fructose corn syrup to other sugars being used.
Yes. Well, there's a strong similarity between high fructose corn syrup and a number of sweeteners. And the first one that we could look at is honey. Now, honey is made up of 55% fructose and 45% glucose, which is very similar to the 55% high fructose corn syrup. So the 55 high fructose corn syrup was designed to look like honey. Now, honey has some additional things apart from the sugar, obviously. There's little minerals and little amino acids and vitamins in it and so on, which high fructose corn syrup wouldn't have. So there's a 5% difference between 55% high fructose corn syrup and honey. So, but as you can see, they are quite similar. The 42% high fructose corn syrup was designed now to look like the cane sugar. Now, cane sugar, those who are familiar with the science, is made up of a sugar called sucrose. Now, sucrose is a combination of fructose and glucose. But once fructose and glucose enter your intestine, it is broken down to the separate units, fructose and glucose, and you're going to get a 42% fructose after it's broken down, and the remaining 58% would be glucose. Now, this is how the 42% high fructose corn syrup is designed. So if you took a sample from the intestine of someone who consumes sucrose or cane sugar and somebody who consumes high fructose corn syrup, 42%, you could not tell a difference at all between the two, because essentially they will be identical in the intestine before they are absorbed into your body.
That's why they have ads running on TV now saying that the body doesn't know the difference.
The body does not know the
high
difference, and
fructose
that's quite accurate as such. Now, the 90% high fructose corn syrup looks like your fruit sugar. If you take a typical fruit, most of the sugar sweetness in that fruit is fructose, and 90%. So the 90% high fructose corn syrup is designed to look like fruit sugars and so on.
So we see here that high fructose corn syrup is very similar to other sugars.
Yeah, very similar, right.
Okay. So there is still great concern out there about the use of high fructose and other sugars. So what is the scientific reason for these concerns?
All right. The problem with high fructose corn syrup and sugars in general is really the issue of fructose, and some scientists are now saying it's not high fructose corn syrup causing the problem, but rather the high level of fructose in our diets and so on. Now, if you understand how the body metabolizes fructose and glucose, you can get a better understanding of where the thinking is going. Okay? Now, let's say you consume some glucose. If you consume glucose after it absorbs into your body, 90% of that glucose is going to end up in your muscles, right? And muscles now use it to do various activities and so on. 10% of that glucose will end up in your liver, and it forms a starch in the liver called glycogen. Now, if on the other hand you consume the same amount of fructose and it absorbs into the body similarly back into the blood, 90% of the fructose now ends up into the liver and produce the same starch we just mentioned called glycogen, and only 10% ends up into the muscles where it will feed the muscles for activity purpose as such. So it's very important to understand where these sugars end up once they have been absorbed into your body. Now, as I said, in the case of fructose, most of it is going to end up to form glycogen, and glycogen is a starch that resides inside your liver. Now, obviously, your liver is storing some of the sugars there in this form, and what happens as your muscles use up the sugars that had entered it from the blood, right? The liver now will replenish the blood by converting this glycogen back into glucose, and by converting the glucose can once more get into the muscle and other tissues also, such as brain.
So that's basically a storage.
It's a storage
depot
to
keep things running smoothly.
Right. That's right. No. Well, here where the problem is. Now, if the storage depot which is the liver, glycogen, becomes excessive, right? Any additional sugar that enters the liver will be converted into fat and end up in the fatty tissue and so on. So most people who are obese, you'll know they have also talk about having a fatty liver and so on. So therefore, if you are consuming a diet that is high in fructose in a situation where the liver is congested with glycogen, then it's going to cause much more accumulation of fat than if you were consuming a diet high in glucose, because most of the glucose, as we said, would end up in the muscle, and only 10% would end up in the liver. So basically what they are saying is that because of the high level of fructose in our diet, and which high fructose corn syrup would supply, and persons' liver glycogen levels are excessive, it results in a lot of fat being formed in the liver. Also, just to mention that the fructose will also form another product called uric acid, and this uric acid is what is associated with hypertension. So both the accumulation of fat in the liver and the increased production of uric acid now would increase the risk of or the tendency to be obese and hypertensive.
So as you showed, high fructose corn syrup is similar to other sugars that are made. So it couldn't be made to give us trouble.
Oh, that's right.
So we're probably using it in the wrong way, because the conclusion that high fructose corn syrup and other sugars cause obesity and hypertension is not consistent with biblical principles.
Yes, definitely this is not consistent with biblical principles, because what you were saying is that God has designed honey, He has designed cane sugar, and also fruit sugar to cause, which increase our risk of having obesity and hypertension.
Now, since this conclusion is not consistent with biblical principles, where has the science gone wrong?
Okay, all right. See, the problem is that we have been concentrating on sugars coming into the body. But one of the things that has been ignored with science is that where sugars that are produced in the body, it's very important to realize that there are sugars that are produced in the body from the breakdown of tissues. And if you examine what happens with the breakdown of tissue and the formation of sugar, you can see where the conflict comes and why this problem has resulted.
So we have more sugar in the body than we think we have.
Right. Now, when we're doing the sabbatical diet, and we talk about the science of the sabbatical diet, we talk about two hormones, very important hormones. One is called cortisol, and the next one is called insulin. Let me just talk a little about the cortisol. I would say these two hormones are very important in restoration, right? Now, cortisol, I would say, is what we call a circadian hormone. Every morning at about 6 o'clock, it starts to rise. It reaches a peak at about 8 o'clock. It stays at that level till about 12 o'clock, and then it disappears. Now, this hormone is a destructive hormone. It programs your body to destroy muscles and protein tissue. Now, once your body begins to destroy muscles and protein tissue, it converts those muscles and protein tissues into sugars, right? So it's going to form glucose as a result of the breakdown of this. Now, if you had a meal in the morning, right, between 6 and 12, that's what we say to do the sabbatical diet, 6 days, you are going to switch off this hormone from causing the breakdown of tissues. Now, on the other hand, insulin, as we said, would come out once you eat sugars in the morning and would override the effects of cortisol if you eat in the morning, and it is what we call a construction hormone that allows the body to put up new tissues, like putting up new muscles and new tissues and so on, repair the tissues and such, right? So we have one hormone that destroys and converts the tissues into sugars, and we have another hormone that produces muscles and proteins and so on, right? Good. Now, let us look at a situation where a person is fasting in the morning and is fasting in the morning regularly, which is a common situation. Most people don't eat any food in the morning. They get up in the morning, take a little coffee, maybe a slice of bread, run off to work, don't eat any more food again until lunchtime or later. So if you are not eating any food in the morning, it means that your cortisol is going to be activated in the morning, right? Now, if your cortisol is activated in the morning, as I just said, it is going to break down your tissues. If it's going to break down your tissues, it's going to form glucose. Now, if you break down your tissues and form glucose in the blood, the glucose that is formed as a result of the broken down tissues are going to replenish the muscles. Therefore, you would not need any sugar that is stored in the liver. So it simply means that the liver storage will begin to accumulate, because every morning you are breaking down tissues to form to form sugar. There's no need to use the sugar inside the liver. So therefore, and if you go back in the evening now and start to eat a lot of fructose sugars, sugars with high fructose in it and so on, you're going to even increase the storage in the liver. So after a while, you're going to maximize the storage in the liver. It's going to become excessive. And if it becomes excessive, then obviously there's no more space to put the fructose, but to convert it to fat or some uric acid, which is going to cause you to get obese and increase your high blood pressure.
So what we're saying, people who habitually do not eat breakfast,
yes,
they're going to be breaking down tissues, producing sugar. This sugar goes into the bloodstream, so the body is not going to pull any from the reserves. So the reserves stay full, and then they go later in the evening and drink the soda, eat some all kind of things with fructose.
That's right.
So it ended up being stored as fat, making the uric acid. So it really suits us to make sure we eat breakfast.
Right.
That's why the sabbatical diet pattern of eating is so important.
Right. So you boil right back down. So the problem is not the eating of fructose is the problem. The problem is that we're not eating in the right pattern. Now the moment you start eating the right pattern, you can have a 6 morning, fast 1 morning. It means only 1 morning for the week. We're breaking down tissues to form glucose. Right? So it's only 1 morning you'll have that situation. The next 6 morning that will not occur. Right. So obviously it's going to reduce the amount of sugars that stays inside the liver, or reduce the amount of liver glycogen. On the other hand, remember we said that when you go on the sabbatical diet, you activate your restoration program, which means you have increased the amount of energy you need, and so on. So it means that when you're fasting and overnight, you are burning calories at a higher rate. So you'll be pulling from that sugar from the liver even at a faster rate. So by the following morning, there probably is no sugar left inside the liver. So the liver is totally clear. So irrespective of how much fructose you might consume during the day, you have enough place to store all of it.
So that's why there's some condition they call fatty liver. It's related to the same
thing.
When
fatty liver is when it's overloaded with its glycogen, it begins to develop fatty liver and so on.
Okay. So the previous conclusion was that the high fructose corn syrup is causing the obesity and the hypertension, but the correct conclusion is that obesity and hypertension are due to inadequate breakfast.
That's correct.
The pattern of eating is crucial.
It's crucial, right.
So let's get back to the original question. Is high fructose corn syrup safe?
Right. Well, the answer is that high fructose corn syrup is very safe as long as you are eating in the correct pattern. Right? It's the pattern of eating that determines whether or not high fructose corn syrup and sugars and honey is safe. It is not the fact that you are eating something with high fructose that makes it safe or unsafe.
Okay, let me go over what we've been saying to make sure we have it clear.
Okay.
Now, we taking sugars, high fructose corn syrup included. And what you were saying is that these sugars are a combination of glucose and fructose.
Right. Basically, all sugars, basically, you could say have fructose and glucose. And the fructose is what is concerned. In normal situation, most of your fructose is going to end up in the liver.
Right.
In a normal situation, most of the glucose is going to end up in the muscles.
Okay. So the fructose is the one that is likely to cause a problem, but most of it goes into the liver.
That's right.
And if the liver supply is maximized and we keep bringing it in, we're going to have excess fructose in the system. The body is going to have to store it as fat. And we were saying that it's going to make a product called uric acid,
that's right,
which also increases
your blood pressure.
Increases your blood pressure.
Another way to look at the whole issue is, and sometimes used to explain to people, is fertilizer. Now, my father was a farmer, and he always teach me about using fertilizers, right? And there are some fertilizers that are very strong, and there are some fertilizers that are very weak. Now, if you use a strong fertilizer inappropriately, let's say you use it very close to the root, one of the things that fertilizer will do, it will damage the root, and therefore it will burn the root and damage the plant is very red. Okay. Now, if you take that same fertilizer and then you apply it at a distance, that plant will grow even better than the plant that you put the weak fertilizer on. Right? So it shows you that the way how a plant responds to a fertilizer is not only determined on the type of fertilizer you use, but the way you apply the fertilizer.
So that's the same thing with the corn syrup.
So let's look at the body now. The way how you apply sugar to your body can have a positive effect on your body or a negative effect. So the fact that they say corn syrup is a poison or sugars are poison is correct if you are using it inappropriately. In other words, strong fertilizer can be damaging to your plant if you don't use it properly.
Right.
Corn syrup and all sugars can be bad to your body if you are not using it properly. Now, once you are not eating heavy in the morning, right, you are shutting down the need to use sugar that is stored in the liver. Your body won't need to use sugar that's stored in the liver.
You have sugar in the blood already.
Because sugar is in the blood already. Therefore, if you have to eat food now that is going to increase the sugar that is stored in the liver, you're not using, you're adding to it, then it's just a matter of time before your stores are filled.
Right.
Now, once the stores are filled, you have a problem because any sugar now coming in with fructose especially has to find somewhere else to go.
Right.
And this is where the fat begins to come in. This is where the uric acid is coming. So the problem is not the sugar. The sugar is not really the poison. Technically speaking, sugar is not really the problem. The problem is that you weren't eating in the right way and you're causing the body to metabolize the sugar in a very bad way. Now, if you are eating the correct way, as we said, eating heavy in the morning, fasting in the one morning, then there would have not been any build-up in sugar in the first case because the body would be constantly using the sugar. There would be very little sugar coming from the muscles. And as I said, your metabolic rate would have increased almost twice.
Right.
In fact, most of the calories that you burn every day, comes from your what we call it basal metabolic rate, which a sizable part of that is your restoration. So if you're not eating the right pattern and fasting, you're not restoring. So if you're not restoring, half of the calories that you would normally use for a day, you're not using. But if you're using those calories, a lot of those calories will be coming from the glycogen that is stored in the liver to continue fuel the system.
Right.
So the repair work can be done and so on. So you will be storing less glycogen and you'll be using more glycogen, so it's very unlikely you're going to have a situation where you overload it. So there's nothing wrong with sugar. There's nothing wrong with high fructose corn syrup. There's nothing wrong with cane sugar. There is nothing wrong with fruit sugars. All these sugars are good, but you must use it the right way.
So what you're saying is we don't have to go to the supermarket and check all the labels and make sure high fructose corn syrup is not in there.
Well, I mean, if you have time to waste, then go and do that. What you should be doing is making sure you find time in the morning to eat the heavy breakfast and you do your fasting one day. That is what you should spend your time doing. Making sure that you have your breakfast and you won't have to waste time watching calories and sugar content and high fructose content of various food.
Okay, so we're back to how God designed us.
Right. So once you are following the biblical principle of the pattern of eating, then you have no problem with sugars.
We don't have problem with most things once we follow that pattern in any case.
That's right.
Okay. So you've all heard what Dr. Robinson said. We do not have to waste our time checking labels for high fructose corn syrup. What we need to spend time on is planning our breakfast and ensuring that we get in adequate calories in the morning. The body will take care of the rest. So what we've seen concerning the high fructose corn syrup is that it is very similar to honey, fruit sugars, cane sugar. And the belief that it causes obesity and hypertension is erroneous. There may be a correlation, but it doesn't cause it. What causes these diseases is a wrong pattern of eating. So we have to get the breakfast running 6 mornings and fast 1 morning. So, in conclusion, high fructose corn syrup and all sugars are not sweet poisons. They are safe as long as we are eating in the correct pattern. The body is going to work with it and we're alright. So, next week now, we're going to look at supplements. A lot of us are concerned about what multivitamin we should take and what minerals and so. So we're going to look at the classification of supplements, see whether there's a need for us to take extra vitamins and so, and whether agricultural practices have affected the quality of food, so we're not getting as many vitamins in it. We'll also answer the question, is the regular intake of antioxidants beneficial or harmful to your health? So until next week, be sure to tune in and join us again as we continue to show you the common sense, logical way to improve your health by simply applying the principles that our Creator has embedded into our systems. Once we do that, we will be able to optimize our health. So until next week, I'm Arlene Robinson with Dr. Robert Robinson, continuing to bring this series into your homes.